Today, we're really getting into the weeds on something central to modern business building. Eric Ries's the lean startup methodology.
Yeah, it's a term you hear everywhere, right?
Thrown around a lot, maybe misused sometimes. We want to unpack what it really means when you actually do it properly.
Right. And it's more than just, launching quickly. It's really a scientific approach. It's hypothesis-driven, designed specifically for those situations of extreme uncertainty.
Okay.
The whole point of the LSM, the lean startup methodology, is to help new ventures figure out a business model that actually scales. And to do that efficiently, by cutting out waste and dramatically shortening that product development cycle. We're talking weeks, maybe months, not years.
So our mission for this deep dive is to really get under the hood of the engine driving this whole thing, that build, measure, learn feedback loop, the BML loop.
That's the core.
We need to understand how it works, like the actual mechanics, where does it really shine? And maybe just as importantly, where does it start to fall apart? What are its limits?
Definitely. And to really get the BML loop, you kind of have to look at where it came from. It didn't just appear out of nowhere.
Right, it has roots.
It does. Two big influences. First, you've got lean manufacturing. Think Toyota production system. Things like just-in-time, small batch sizes, all focused on efficiency and speed on the factory floor.
Okay, factory efficiency applied to startups.
Sort of, yeah. But then there's the second piece, which is crucial for the mindset.
Which is?
Steve Blank's customer development model. So the LSM basically takes Toyota's efficiency and smashes it together with Blank's core idea. You have to get out of the building, talk to your customers.
Okay. So it's like industrial efficiency meets customer obsession.
Pretty much. And the result is powerful because you treat every single assumption about your product, your market, anything like a scientific experiment you need to test.
It's a different way of thinking about management too, isn't it? That's one of the pillars Ries talks about. Entrepreneurship is management, just a very agile kind.
Exactly. But the absolute cornerstone concept, the thing that really defines progress in this system, is validated learning.
Validated learning. Okay, let's define that because it sounds important.
Oh, it's critical. It's the fundamental mindset shift.
Yeah.
It basically means getting empirical proof, real evidence that your team has actually learned something valuable about the business's prospects.
So it's not about flashy numbers.
No, it's not about vanity metrics. Forget press mentions, forget how much money you raised, forget even total user numbers sometimes. Success is measured by proof of discovery. What did you learn that's true?
That makes sense. But focusing on truth over, say, revenue, how does that change what teams actually do day to day?
It changes everything, especially internal dynamics. Validated learning is the antidote to the HIPPO problem.
The HIPPO?
The highest paid person's opinion, where the boss just decides things based on gut feeling.
Right.
Validated learning takes that away. Decisions aren't driven by the loudest voice or the highest rank. They're driven by data. Data you get directly from customers through experiments.
So it forces discipline.
Completely. It sets up a clear process. Specify a goal, define a metric you can actually measure, then act, analyze that metric. Did you get closer to the goal?
Yeah.
And then decide how to improve or change. It's how you separate real progress from just, spinning your wheels.
Okay, great distinction. So validated learning is the goal, the destination, and the BML loop is the car that gets you there.
Perfect analogy.
Let's get into that loop then. That cycle of build, measure, learn. It guides that big decision, right? Pivot or persevere.
And it all starts with build, which really means building the minimum viable product, the MVP.
The MVP. Probably the most debated 3 letters in startups. People hear MVP and think unfinished or buggy or just plain bad.
And that's a huge misunderstanding we need to clear up. MVP isn't about low quality. It's about the minimum effort you need.
Minimum effort for what?
To get one cycle of the BML loop done, to learn something significant. The goal is learning efficiency, not engineering perfection at this stage. It just needs that absolute bare bones set of features required to test your core assumption, your biggest risk.
And that forces some hard choices, I imagine, about what really matters right now.
It does. It forces ruthless prioritization. You go from idea straight to focusing only on the must-haves for that first learning loop.
So what does an MVP actually look like? It's not always code, right?
Not at all. It could be a simple prototype, maybe just clickable mock-ups, or sometimes it's completely manual behind the scenes. Think about Dropbox back in the day.
The video example?
Exactly. They had this massive technical challenge, right? File synchronization is hard. But before writing tons of complex code, they needed to know, do people even want this?
So they built what?
Basically, a landing page. and a simple explainer video showing how it would work. That was it.
Yeah.
That video and a sign-up form was their MVP.
And that was enough.
It was enough to validate huge demand. It proved people understood the problem and wanted the solution. That dramatically reduced their market risk before they sunk massive resources into engineering. It's like that lean manufacturing idea. Again, small batches, quick feedback. Here it's a minimal feature set, quick user feedback.
That's a great example. And you mentioned Aardvark too, the search engine.
Right. Aardvark, the social search engine. That didn't just pop up fully formed. The successful version was actually the 6th major iteration.
6. Wow.
Yeah, 6 different MVPs, each one building on the validated learning or validated failures of the one before it. Constant refinement based on real user interaction.
Okay, so you've built the MVP, minimal effort, focused learning goal. Now you move to measure.
Correct. And this is where something called innovation accounting comes in. It's crucial. You absolutely must set up your metrics before you launch the MVP.
Why before?
So the data you collect is actually actionable. If you figure out your metrics afterwards, you risk falling into the trap of just picking the ones that make you look good, those vanity metrics again.
And innovation accounting, that's different from regular financial accounting.
Totally different. Standard accounting, like GAAP, is for stable businesses with predictable revenue. Startups are anything but stable. They're searching for a model.
So what do you measure?
You need metrics focused on finding that product market fit. Innovation accounting often relies on cohort analysis.
Tracking specific groups of users over time.
Exactly. So you can see if the changes you're making to the product are actually improving user behavior for new users compared to older cohorts. You look at things like engagement rates, how many users stick around, retention conversion rates.
So critically, how much it costs to get a customer.
Yes. Customer acquisition cost, CAC. And you have to balance that against how much value you get from them over time, the lifetime value or LTV. If your CAC is way higher than your LTV, your business model is broken no matter how many people signed up.
So build the minimum, measure what matters, which brings us to the payoff. Learn.
This is the moment of truth. You look at the data you measured, both quantitative analytics and maybe qualitative stuff like interviews.
Okay.
And you ask, was our initial hypothesis correct? Did the MVP validate our core assumption?
And based on the answer, you either
persevere or you pivot. Persevere means, okay, the data looks promising, the hypothesis is holding up, so you continue on the current path, maybe making small improvements. That's like Kaizen, continuous improvement from lean manufacturing.
Or the data says, nope.
Or the data says, nope, or maybe not quite. And that leads to the pivot.
Which sounds drastic, but it's not just random guessing.
Absolutely not. A pivot is a structured course correction. It's designed specifically to test a new fundamental hypothesis because the old one didn't pan out.
So it's a big change, not just tweaking a feature.
Right. It's changing something fundamental.
Yeah.
Maybe you target a completely different customer segment. Maybe you change how you make money, your value capture model, switching from ads to subscriptions, perhaps. Or you might change your growth engine or your channel. It's a core strategic shift driven by the learning you just did.
Can you give an example of a pivot driven by this kind of learning? Zappos comes to mind.
Zappos is a classic case, though it's more about validating the core premise before a massive investment that might have needed pivoting away from. Their leap of faith was huge. Would people really buy shoes online, sight unseen?
Seems obvious now, but wasn't then.
Not at all. So instead of building warehouses and complex inventory systems, the founder, Nick Swinburne, did it manually. He put up a basic website. When an order came in, he'd literally go to a local shoe store, buy the shoes, and ship them himself.
Wow. That sounds exhausting.
Yeah, it was. But that incredibly manual, non-scalable process was his MVP for testing demand. It proved people would buy shoes online, validating that core assumption before he needed to raise millions to build the infrastructure. That learning allowed him to persevere and scale, rather than potentially pivoting away from a flawed assumption about inventory needs.
That's a brilliant example of prioritizing learning over premature optimization. Okay, so this BML loop, when done right, seems incredibly effective. Let's talk results. Why does this work so well?
Well, the biggest reason is it tackles market risk head-on by getting feedback fast and often.
You find out sooner if you're building something nobody wants.
Precisely. You accelerate finding product market fit. And that means you stop wasting time, money, R&D resources, your capital expenditure, your CapEx building features, or entire products based on guesswork.
And it's not just for tiny startups in a garage, right? Big companies use this too.
Oh, absolutely. Look at General Electric. They implemented a program called FastWorks. which is basically lean startup principles adapted for GE scale.
And did it work for a giant like GE?
The results were pretty stunning. Their gas turbine division, for instance, managed to shorten their product development cycle by 2 years and cut costs by 40%.
2 years faster. Wow.
Yeah. And their appliance group apparently doubled its sales growth rate. The key was shifting from designing products based on internal assumptions to testing those assumptions early and often with real customer feedback using that BML framework. They basically institutionalized validated learning.
The data from the startup world seems to echo this too. I remember reading about Startup Genome's research.
That's a key study. They analyzed over 650 web startups. And they found that the companies that pivoted, remember, the structured course corrections once or twice actually raised 2.5 times more money.
More money after pivoting. Interesting.
And maybe more importantly, they were 52% less likely to scale prematurely, meaning they didn't pour fuel on the fire before they actually had a working engine.
So pivots aren't failures. They're signs of learning and adaptation.
Exactly. The market seems to reward that data-driven agility rather than just stubbornly sticking to a flawed plan because of sunk costs. There's even been rigorous academic research, like randomized control trials.
RCTs on startups?
Yeah, involving over 100 startups. They found that structured training in the lean startup method led to, well, more pivots, yes, but also faster discarding of bad ideas, they called them exits, and crucially, a shorter time to generating revenue. It just makes the process of finding the right path more efficient.
Okay, the case for LSM and the BMLE loop is strong. The results seem clear, but let's pump the brakes a little. It can't be perfect. No methodology is a silver bullet.
No, absolutely not. And it's critical to understand the boundaries. Where does it not fit so well?
Right. What are the limitations?
Well, the sweet spot for LSM is really where market uncertainty is high. You don't know what customers want, but technological uncertainty is relatively low.
Meaning it's easier to build the thing than it is to know if people want the thing you build.
Kind of, yeah. Think digital products, software, websites. You can build and iterate relatively quickly and cheaply. The BML loop works beautifully there.
But where does it get tricky?
It gets much trickier when the technological uncertainty is high. Think deep science, ventures, new materials, biotech, pharmaceuticals.
Because you can't just whip up an MVP of a new drug.
Exactly. The feedback loops aren't just slow, they can be incredibly expensive. Years of R&D. Product changes might mean completely restarting complex chemical processes or even reapplying for patents or regulatory approval. You can't fail fast with a jet engine design or a phase 3 clinical trial.
And highly regulated industries in general must be tough. Aerospace, maybe some healthcare areas.
Definitely. Any field where mistakes are catastrophic or simply not tolerated. The whole move fast and break things ethos just doesn't fly when lives are on the line or when regulations demand extreme upfront validation and stability.
Okay, so sector matters a lot. What about risks within the sectors where it should work, like software? You mentioned the MVP pressure earlier.
Right. There's a very real risk around the MVP concept itself. The pressure to build minimally and quickly can lead teams to cut corners on quality.
Technical debt.
Exactly. You end up with what developers sometimes call junk code, or really poor software architecture. It gets you through that first BML loop fast, sure. But down the road, you pay a heavy price trying to build on that shaky foundation. You might spend way more time refactoring or completely rewriting than you saved initially. Short-term speed for long-term pain.
And are there external factors? Like, does the market itself sometimes reject the lean approach?
Yes, that's a really interesting point, especially in global contexts. Research has shown that in some markets, parts of India or Indonesia, for example, site customers might actually be put off by a very bare bones, obviously minimal MVP.
Really?
There might be an expectation, even for a new product, of something more polished, more ready-made. So startups in those environments might find they have to run fat instead of lean, invest more upfront in features and polish just to gain initial trust and legitimacy, which kind of undermines the core lean principle of minimizing that initial investment.
Okay, that's a huge caveat. And finally, the learn phase depends entirely on talking to customers, right? Customer discovery.
It does.
Yeah.
And that process itself is incredibly easy to mess up because of human psychology.
Oh, so?
Bias. It's riddled with potential biases. Entrepreneurs are passionate. They want their idea to be right. So they risk selection bias, only talking to people they know will be supportive, like friends and family.
Or they ask leading questions.
That's confirmation bias. Phrasing questions in a way that nudges people towards the answer you want to hear. Don't you think this feature is amazing? instead of how would you solve this problem?
And there's another one, acquiescence bias.
Yeah, that's a subtle but powerful one. It's where the person you're interviewing just tells you what they think you want to hear, maybe just to be polite or avoid conflict. They acquiesce.
So if you're not super careful and structured about those interviews,
Your validated learning could be built on completely flawed data. You think you've learned something true, but you've actually just confirmed your own biases. And the worst outcome there is getting stuck endlessly pivoting based on bad information, just churning through the process without ever actually building a real business or generating revenue.
Right, you become obsessed with the loop itself, not the outcome. The strategic trap of iterating forever on problems that maybe aren't worth solving.
So to sum up, the Lean Startup methodology, with the BML loop at its heart, it's a genuinely powerful, systematic way to turn ideas into businesses. It forces you to value empirical evidence over just guessing.
But it's a tool, not magic.
Exactly. Like any powerful tool, you need discipline, you need awareness of its limitations, and you need to apply it in the right context.
Okay, so it emphasizes this continuous learning, these fast, low-cost experiments, the fail fast mantra. But think about some of the truly huge game-changing innovations, things that really disrupted industries. Often, those didn't come from a quick MVP. They required deep, long-term commitment to really complex, maybe non-obvious problems. Sometimes years of work before anything looked like validation. Maybe they only worked on the fifth or sixth major, costly iteration way beyond a simple MVP cycle.
That's a really important tension.
So here's the thought we want to leave you with. How do you, as an innovator or leader, balance that lean startup pressure to learn quickly and fail fast? With the strategic patience, the grit, maybe even the irrational commitment sometimes needed to pursue those truly disruptive, non-incremental breakthroughs that might not fit neatly into the BML framework early on.
That's the multi-million-dollar question, isn't it?
Something to chew on. Join us next time for another deep dive.